Thank you, everyone that is here. Thanks for logging in, and we hope you like this topic that we're going to present today. My name is Kaylee. I'm the Client Service Coordinator here at CompuWorks. And today we're going to be talking about Teams beyond the basics. So we did host a webinar that was the basics of Teams, and this is going to kind of get more into the nitty-gritty of all of that. Our next webinar will be Outlook Beyond the Basics, and it's going to be October 26th at 1:30, the fourth Tuesday. We're sticking with the same schedule, so we hope you all can join us for that one as well. Just some Zoom and meeting etiquette for anyone who has a question during our webinar today. Please use the Q&A button in Zoom to bring up the box where you can enter your question. We'll be answering them throughout the webinar, and we also have a Q&A session at the end. We'll try to get through as many of the questions as possible during the allotted hour, but if we do run out of time, we can stay on a little later or answer your questions after the webinar. We do like to follow up all these webinars with a survey to get your feedback on any ideas for future topics, what you want to hear about, and how you think these webinars are going, because we do want to tailor them to benefit our clients. And we do have a handout for this event, so make sure you go to the chat box and download the Microsoft Teams Advanced Word document. It will go over all the topics that Jolynn is going to speak to today. Before our presentation begins, I'd like to introduce you to CompuWorks founding partner, Alan Bowman.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the CompuWorks community. Another really great turnout today. I think this is a topic that people obviously have some interest in. This is the fourth of these sessions that we have done. We started the first one in June, as Kaylee mentioned, with the team session. We wanted to take a little bit of a deeper dive into things, and so that's what we're going to do here today. And I'll tell you, it is fairly incredible, the kind of growth that this platform has seen over the past year. We all know why, but just in terms of some rough numbers, I think a year ago, roughly today, Teams had about 75 million users, and the latest statistic I saw had it approaching 300 million users. Yes. So, the growth and adoption of this platform is really huge, and we really don't see it slowing down, even as people start to return to the office. We kind of feel like, the sense that we get is that the hybrid workplace is here to stay. People like Teams meetings for lots of reasons. It doesn't tie you to a place, obviously. So there's a lot of good reasons for continuing to use Teams, and that's really what we're seeing. One of the quick questions that I wanted to just address before I introduce our instructor, Jolynn, is, here we are on Zoom doing a team session. And, that was a question that came up last time. And I wanted to answer it because I don't think we got a chance to answer it last time. And the reason for that is that Zoom does a much better job at webinars. And that's really it. That's the only reason. I'm not sure that that's going to be a true statement, a year from now. But when we started down this road, Zoom was clearly the choice for this style of presentation. We actually use Teams every day in our day-to-day business, as do many of our clients. So that's the answer to that little mystery. And with that, I'm going to get out of the way. And oh, by the way, this session is actually scheduled for 1 hour and 15 minutes. So we're going to have about an hour of content, and then we've left another 15 minutes for for questions at the end. And as Kaylee mentioned, this will be recorded. Everybody that's on the call today will get a copy of that recording and a follow-up email that will go out tomorrow. So with that, I want to introduce our instructor today, Jolynn Reen. So the first session that we've done with Jolynn, and we're very excited to have her here. She has over 20 years of professional training experience. She is a certified trainer and a Microsoft Master Instructor, and I know I'm going to learn something, so I'm going to just sit back and let Jolynn take it away.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, Alan and Kaylee. As Alan just said, I'm Jolynn. I'm going to turn my screen right over to Microsoft Teams because we have such a short period of time to cover a lot of different topics. So let me go ahead and get Microsoft Teams open. So one of the things that I wanted to start with right away is kind of feeding off of what Alan had just said. When we do a session, a training session on Microsoft Teams, what Alan said is 100% true. It is not always, the go-to for doing these types of sessions, but Microsoft Teams, if we were using that today for our session for everybody to be joining, I wouldn't be able to demonstrate some of the features that we have within the program too. So using a different program to be able to open a team session inside it works much better during a training session. So I just wanted to mention that reason as well. So one of the things that I get asked a lot in Microsoft Teams is, how often am I going to be in that program? What should I be really using it for? And I am a user of this program every day. I open it as soon as I log in on my computer in the morning, and I never close it, just like Microsoft Outlook. And Microsoft Teams is connected with other apps, mainly Microsoft Outlook. So we're in Outlook when we are in Teams because they're connected. But just so you know that the background of this program is actually SharePoint. So when you create a team, which we're going to talk about in just a moment, you are creating a SharePoint site. So the files and things that would be shared within your team itself are technically a document library in a SharePoint site. So just so you have a little background on the program itself. Now, Teams can be used, or the program in general can be used for so many different things. If you are looking at your page 1 of that handout that was provided to you through the chat, it talks about the Teams user interface. The Teams user interface is really kind of referring to, what do you see on the left-hand side starting out with that navigation pane? And I want to talk a little bit about that navigation pane before we get into other areas, because one of the big things is, okay, if I open Teams right away, just like I open up my Outlook, how am I going to know that I should go to Teams? What's going to draw my attention to have me go to that program to know there's something in there directly related to you? Well, you know what it's like if you have Outlook. You get a new email, you have that notification icon, that email. It looks like a little envelope down on your Outlook icon. So you know you have a new message. Well, here in Microsoft Teams, you're going to know that there's something new a couple of different ways. One way is looking at your Teams icon down at the taskbar. If you look at mine right now, you can see I have a red circle with a 1 in it. So I know that I have one new something in the program that is drawing my attention to that program. When I come into the program, I can see exactly what's new. If I look at my navigation pane on the left-hand side, I know I have a new activity. If I had other things that were new, there would be a red dot on those categories from that left-hand side. So I have an activity, I see a red circle with a 1 in it, so I know I have something new there. But there's other areas that will let you know based on notifications when you have something going on. And if you look at my screen right now, you're going to see that some of my teams and some of my channels are actually bold. So you're going to see that bold on my HR department team, where it's benefits and HR manager. Both of those are bold. So that's letting me know that something new was done in those teams within those channels. Now I'm going to break apart that a little bit deeper here about what exactly is a channel and what is a team here in a second. But I just wanted you to start noticing certain things that are going to be happening within the program. One more thing about notifications that I want to bring up. I'll talk more about them a little bit later, but one of the other things is you will get a banner notification. If you get a new chat, you get an invite to an impromptu meeting, you have a scheduled meeting that you should be attending, there's going to be other notifications that are going to appear on your screen, just like with Outlook. You can get that banner notification at the bottom right corner of your screen, and that's going to show you if you had a new chat or whatever else is going on. And if you had a scheduled meeting through Microsoft Teams, you will get the normal reminder window that's going to pop up in Outlook. Just like if it were a regular Outlook meeting notification, you'll get that notification too with a Teams meeting. And it will allow you to join that meeting directly by clicking on the join button from that pop-up message. So that's always a big thing to know what's going to draw me to the program to know I should go there. Just like with Outlook, you'll get notifications all over. Okay, so let's kind of take this a little bit further. I'm not going to go through each of the categories on the left-hand side right now. I'm going to start out by focusing on a team inside Teams. So it's kind of strange that we're in the program called Teams, but inside there, we can create or be a member of, or an owner or a guest of other teams. So I'm on the Teams category from the left-hand side, and right now I can see that I have 4 different teams. The names of my teams are Virtual Training Company, well, that's a channel, sorry, Vacation, PTO, Holiday, I have something new in there. I can see that I have a team called Microsoft Office. I have 365 apps, and I have a team called HR Department. Now, I know these are teams, the names of the teams, because underneath them, I see the names of the channels. The team itself has an icon to the left of it. And just to point out, there is a couple of different types of teams that I'm looking at right now. My virtual training company team is actually called an org-wide team. So technically in Microsoft Teams, we have 3 different types of teams. These are listed on the bottom of page 2 of your handout. We have private, we have public, and we have org-wide. So my virtual training company team is an org-wide team. And what that means is that it's going to show up automatically in this program, and it's available to every user in my company. Every user in my company sees it automatically. I didn't have to ask to be a member. They didn't have to add me as a member or anything. I'm automatically a member. But my other teams that I have are all considered private teams. And that's actually the most common. Not everybody can create an org-wide team. You have to be an administrator. So the public would be available to anybody in your company, but they're not going to see it automatically. The org-wide, the public, those are probably not the most common. Really the private. The private is something that we're going to create together today if you want to follow along with me, because at the end I will show you how to delete it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a brand new team, and I'm going to say I want a team that's going to be related to my marketing department. You can create a new team by going to the bottom. And let me back up for just a second, just so you know, we always work from the left-hand side of the screen. So whatever you click on from the left, you're going to see something different in the center. And then whatever you click on from the center of the screen changes what you see on the right-hand side. So you always want to go left to right and always go all the way to the right-hand side. Don't stop. Keep looking all the way across your screen, because it's amazing what you're going to find for commands at the top right. At the top right. Always check the top right. But I'm going to go to this middle pane at the bottom, and I'm going to click on Join or Create a Team. Join would be if you had a code, which is a code that we can generate for a team, you could enter that code number. But we're going to click Create Team. By the way, this is actually going to be located in your book starting on page 3, creating a new team. I'm going to click on From Scratch. I'm going to click on From Scratch. And then I'm going to be choosing private. It can always be changed from public or org-wide. You should always start with a private team. At the top of page 2 of your handout, I have a few kind of bulleted list items of planning a team. You should always plan before you build. And me personally, highly recommend that you start with private, because private can be changed later if you need to. So I'm going to go ahead and click on private. What you want to do for the planning side is, before you create it, think of what is the objective? What is the purpose of the team that you are creating? And what you're going to do is, I personally write down what my objective is. I'm a big planner, and I do a lot of project management and teach project management. And so I always have an objective. It's part of my scope statement. I create an objective of everything that I'm doing. So as I mentioned, I'm going to do mine as being a marketing department team. So that's what I'm going to title it. Marketing department. I'm not going to put the word team in there, but I'm going to put marketing department as the name. The description is my objective. So the description is going to be seen by people that you invite to the team. So you should always put in a description. So I'm going to say this team is for all marketing department employees. And I would keep going with that. I would put a brief description based on time, etc. But I won't worry so much about that today. But just so you know, you should put in a description. I'm going to click create. I'm going to click create. Now, one of the things that you should be planning for is not only, what's the objective, what are you going to name it, but what are you going to do with it? Who's going to need access to this team? Well, you're going to see that your next step on this wizard to creating a team is asking you to add members. I recommend you don't add members right now unless the member is going to be another owner. So if you're going to have more than one owner to your team, add that person now. Otherwise, I encourage you to skip adding members right now. Let me explain why. If you add somebody to this team right now, they are immediately going to get an email notification letting them know that they were added to the team, and they're going to see it immediately in their Microsoft Teams program. Well, the problem with that is we haven't built it yet. We don't want people to go in it until we actually have it created. So I'm going to actually click skip. I'm going to click skip. So I'm not going to add members yet. We'll come back and do that in just a second. So what you are going to see by default is you will always get what is called a general channel. The general channel is going to be, and you can't delete it, by the way, but a general channel is something that you get with every team to put general information directly related to the team name. So anything that is going to be generic for this marketing department, I would put directly in that channel called general. If you look at the right-hand side of the screen at the top, you're going to see that it says general, the name of our channel. It automatically is going to give you 3 tabs. So every channel consists of tabs. The tabs go across the top, and I think of them as kind of being like sheet tabs, or when you're on your internet browser where you have different tabs across the top. That's kind of what these tabs are like. Whichever tab you go to is going to give you different information. So by default, you're going to see a post tab, a files tab, and a wiki tab. We'll get to those in just a second. But just so you're noticing, you can add as many channels as you think you might need for that specific team. Now, it does talk about the teams, channels, and tabs starting on page 2, but it gets into a lot more detail about these channels and adding them on page 4 of your handout. So if you want to see generic instructions on how to do things, you could follow along in that handout after we get done with our session. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say I want to have a channel that is going to be directly related to our company templates. So I'm going to go to my middle part of my window where I see my name of my team, and I'm going to click on the ... for my menu. By the way, you can also just right click. So if you're a right clicker, you'll probably right click more often. So you can right click on the name of your team to get this pop-up menu. Otherwise, click on the ellipse on the right-hand side. But I'm going to go ahead and click on add channel. So this is going to be one way for you to add a channel. I could give you about 3 or 4 different ways to add a channel, but right clicking is very common. And then in this create a channel, this is going to be similar to a wizard where you're going to need to put in different information. So when you're planning, you're going to know which channels you're going to need and what information you're going to store within those channels. What do you need to have access to? So I'm going to call mine company templates, because this is where we want to share information related to any of the templates that we're going to provide to the employees of our company. Normally I would put in a description, but down at the bottom where it says privacy, I'm going to keep this as standard, which means it's going to be accessible from anybody that is a member or a guest of our team. I'm going to keep it as standard, but just so you're aware, you can create private channels. That's at the bottom of page 4, it talks about private channels. You would click on this drop down for standard and choose private. If you create a private channel, only the people that you invite to that channel will have access to it. Otherwise, if you don't invite them, they will not see it. They won't be able to click on it. They won't even see it. But you have to be a member before you can be added to a private channel. So you have to be a team member to have access to a private channel inside that team. We're not going to worry so much about doing that today. We're short on time. So just so you know, the information is on page 4 starting. I'm going to click add to add this channel to our team. Once I click add, it's going to add it under the general channel. So general channel always comes first. Any of the other channels that you add will be alphabetized. Just so you're aware, it does that by default. So when we are in this channel, you're going to see by default, you're also seeing the 3 tabs at the top. We have a post tab, a files tab, and a wiki tab. Now, I'm not going to get into a lot of detail onto each one of those different tabs right at this moment. I'll come back and talk a little bit more about those. But just so you know, tabs are apps. Tabs are technically an app. And that means that each tab will give you access to different information. The tabs are in your handout on page 5. So if after our session you want to go back and read more about those tabs, that is starting on page 5, going over to page 6. So I'm going to add a new tab in a second. The post tab, the files tab, and the wiki tab are here by default, but then you can add other tabs for other apps that you might want to have access to. So let's say for these company templates, we're going to do some redesign in 2022 to some of our templates. And we actually want to create a to-do list so that we can assign tasks to the appropriate employees to get that work done. We can add an app called Microsoft Planner / to-dos. They used to be separate apps, but Microsoft is combining them to become one app now. So what I'm going to do is go to the top where I see the names of my tabs, and I'm going to click on the plus sign. When you click on the plus sign, it opens up the add a tab window where you're going to be able to choose which app you want to add. So you could be adding an Excel spreadsheet, a PDF, direct access by just clicking on the tab to get to these apps. Otherwise, you could add a list, you could add a OneNote notebook, whatever it is that you might need to have access to. I'm going to go ahead and choose Tasks by Planner and To Do. I'm going to click on Tasks by Planner and To Do. It's going to automatically take me into adding that new planner, this new task list. I'm going to give it a name so that everybody knows exactly what's going to be the task list. And I'm going to name this. So the name of my tab is going to be 2022 Task List. I'm going to name it 2022 Task List. Then I'm going to click Save. When I click Save, it's going to add it as a tab inside this channel. So just to kind of backtrack a little bit, we created a team called Marketing Department. We haven't added any members yet. We're going to do that in just a second, but it automatically gave us a channel called General. And then we personally created a channel called Company Templates. So what I want you to be thinking about is what direct relationship do these tabs have to this channel? Every channel needs to be directly related back to the name of the team. So everything in this channel for Company Templates should be related to that title, Company Templates. But all of the company template information needs to be directly related back to the marketing department, just so you're kind of following how that pattern goes. Okay, so let's take this a step further. Just so you know, this is a to-do list, and just a brief overview as to how this works, because it's so great. I'm just going to go to where it says enter a task name. So if you haven't used this app before, encourage you to check it out. So if you need to create a task list and assign it to other people, this is my go-to program. And it's directly here inside my channel. So everybody will have access to it that needs access. So I'm going to click on enter a task name. And so I'm going to put in that I need to do, let's say that we're going to have a new business card. That's going to be one of the templates. I'm going to say, call this one business card. I'm going to set a due date to it. And I'm going to say it's going to be due November 1st. And then I'm going to click assign. Because I don't have other members to this team right now, I can't assign it to somebody that's not a member. They have to be a member of this team to have access to this. So I'm just going to assign it to myself, Jolene. Then I'm just going to click my X to close the assignment. And I'm going to just keep this task. I'm not going to put in anybody else that's going to be assigned to it or anything. I'm just going to click add for right now. So I clicked the add button to add this task to the list. Now, just so you know, Jolene's going to get an email, or whoever you assign it to, they will get an email letting them know that they have been assigned to that task. So when you put in a name, you put in whatever details, they will get an email letting them know that they have been assigned to that task. Okay. Now, I'm not going to go any further on the details of that today. That's a whole nother session that we could do just using these different apps that we have. But just so you know, a team consists of channels, and inside the channels is where you'll put your apps, which in here are called files. I'm sorry, are called tabs. They're called tabs. And in your book on page 5, it talks about the default tabs that we have. We have a post tab. The post tab is where you can do communication with the team members. So let me go back and add a couple of I'll add 2 team members to this team right now, and then we'll be able to communicate back and forth through the post. I'm going to go back to the name of my team and do a right click. I'm going to right click on marketing department. From that pop-up, I'm going to left click on add member. From there, I'm going to choose by starting to type the name of the people that I want to add. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a generic user that I have called student 1. Then I'm also going to add a Gmail account. I'm going to add my Gmail account just so that you can see it's going to say guest after my Gmail. I'm going to click the word add, click the button for add. And now those 2 have just received an email letting them know that they have been added to this team, and it automatically shows up in their Microsoft Teams program. And you'll notice that my Gmail is a guest. The reason that person is added automatically as a guest is because they are not part of my domain. So only people that are part of your domain by default will be added as a member. The rest will be guests if they're outside of your Outlook domain, your network domain. I can change a member to an owner if I want somebody else to have full rights to the program, which we'll get to the rights here in just a second. But where it says member, I could click on that drop down and choose owner. So I could do it here, but I can also do it in another place that we're going to use in just a minute, because we can manage the team, which includes managing our members, our owners, or our guests. And it also includes managing your channels. I'm going to click close. My team members are added, so I can communicate with them now through this channel and or through the team in general. So I'm going to just go down to new conversation, just so you know. The new conversation is where we can then communicate based on whichever channel you want to talk about. So I could say something like, does anyone know who will work on the 2022 business cards? And as soon as I press enter, it's going to automatically post it to the post tab. So anybody that's a member can go in there and reply to it or start a new conversation. I won't take that any further today. I'm going to go to the files tab though. I'm going to click on files. I mentioned a minute ago that when you create a team, it's using a SharePoint document library, and all of these files are part of that document library. You can see that because if you look at the menu at the top, it says open in SharePoint. So technically you could open this directly in SharePoint. You can bring in files from your computer, from anything that you have access to, can be a part of this channel into this company templates. So if I have templates that we're working on, I could either start new ones, I could upload or drag and drop files that I have on my computer somewhere into this team. But what's going to happen is it's going to make a copy of an existing file. So you don't want to keep it in multiple places. So if you copy a file in to Teams, it's part of Teams now, and other people can use it and access it. They can make changes to it. You don't want to keep that other file. You want it in one place so you know exactly which file is being updated. I'm just going to go ahead and go to my File Explorer, and I'm going to go ahead and grab an Excel file and bring that into the team itself. So let me go ahead and go to an Excel file, and I'll bring it into our team just so you can see how you could do this. So I'm just going into Excel. I'm going to grab a file. I'm going to drag it to my Teams and drop it. And it's going to automatically download it into this document library. Another way to get a file into this channel is if it is added during a chat, whether it's from the post or if it's directly through a meeting that was done through this channel, it would automatically go to this Files tab. Anybody that has access to this team, to this channel, has access to this file, just so you're aware of that. Files are actually discussed on page 6 of your handout. A file that is in a team by default, as I said, anyone can open, and it's going to open it directly here in Microsoft Teams. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to open up this Excel dashboards file just by clicking on the name of the file. It opens it here in Teams. I don't have to leave Teams to work on the file. Teams is our go-to program that we can do everything right inside the program. We don't have to worry about going to the Excel app and opening up the file from there. We do everything right here. And when I open up this file, anybody else that has access to this channel, to this team, can open it with me. I was having difficulties on my other computer today. Otherwise, I'd demonstrate that to show 2 people in it. But just so you're seeing, you get your simplified ribbon up at the top. This is Excel Online. This is the online version. So I can come in and make any changes that I need to. I have all my sheet tabs down at the bottom. So I could always be accessing my sheet tabs and making my changes, just like you normally would. When you are done, you go to the top right and click on the close button, not the X, but the close button to close the file when you're done. And it stays directly here within this channel, part of that marketing department team. Great choice. I love having access to everything in one central location. I don't have to worry about opening up Excel and then navigating to where the file is located. Everything is right here. Okay. So enough about those for right now. Let's take Teams a little bit further. And as a program, no matter which part of Teams you're in, you have a feature called @mentions. Now, you may have used @mentions in other Microsoft programs. I use it in Outlook a lot, so it draws attention to a specific person. So at the bottom of page 7, going to the top of page 8, it talks about managing your @mentions, where basically you're just going to put your @ symbol, then you're going to put the name of the person. So it draws attention to that person. I use that quite often on the post channels, or I should say the post tab of my channels. So if I'm going to be in the post tab and I'm in my company templates channel, and I want to draw attention to something in a post to a person, I want to make sure that they see it. I can do the @mention. I'm going to click reply to this message, and I want to mention, I'm going to say that I want to mention my student 1. I'm going to do I'm going to type an S, and it's going to show me who I have access to. I'm going to click on student 1. So I'm doing a draw attention to that user. But let me tell you something that's a little bit beyond this in Teams. What if you wanted to draw attention to, let's say that you have a group of people that do your social media for your company, and there's 3 people. You don't need to do an @mention for each of the 3 people separately. Here in Microsoft Teams, you could create what is called a custom tag. That information is on page 8 of your handout. So instead of having to individually choose people as an @mention, if you have a group that you want to address, you could create a custom tag in your team that includes those 3 people. Then just do the name of the tag, and the 3 people will be notified. It's a great feature. So I'm doing an @mention to student 1. I just found the info, and that's all I'll do. So that person got a notification that they were mentioned. So notifications all over the place here in Microsoft Teams. So you won't miss anything if it's directly related to you. Okay. So it talks about the posts, talks about the @mentions, going over to page 8 in your handout. And then important and urgent chats within Microsoft Teams. If you have a communication that you want to do with another user, a very big part of using Teams is using chats. So we can chat with somebody. It doesn't have to be part of a team, part of a channel, and go to the post tab. If you just want to chat with somebody that's not part of your team, you can do a chat, and you can start that chat directly in Outlook and programs like Microsoft Project. As long as you can see the person's profile circle, you can do a chat with them. I'm going to go directly here in Teams and do a chat, which, by the way, notice I have 2 red dots on the left-hand side. So I know I have 2 new things going on here in Teams. I'm going to click on activity. If I click on activity, I can see that the student posted a new file. I can see that on my right-hand side that is directly related to my vacation, PTO, and holidays. That channel called Vacation, PTO, and Holidays. I see that at the top right of my screen. So as soon as I clicked on the activity, it shows me something new was done in that channel on a post. So I'm going to go to the chat though. I'm going to go to the left, click on chat. I can see that I have a meeting with student 1 that was done. If I click on it, it's bold. If I click on it, I know that it was new because it was bold. And on the right-hand side, I can see the details of a meeting that was done with student 1, my Jolene computer, my student 1 computer. But I want to actually go to my student 1 chat. I'm not going to get into the basic details of chatting. I want to take this just a step further. So I'm going to go to a previous chat, history of chat. And on the right-hand side, I'm going to go down to the bottom. And you can see down at the bottom, you have this A with a pencil. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And that pops up a menu that I can do different formatting options. And I'm going to type the message first. And I'm going to say, I need to talk to you as soon as possible. So I'm going to send a chat to my other user. And I want to tell them I need to talk to you as soon as I can. Well, I'm going to go to this exclamation mark down at the bottom. I'm going to click on this exclamation mark, and I'm not going to send it as just a standard chat. I could send it as important, where it will show up to them with the red exclamation mark, but I'm going to take that further. I'm going to click urgent. What urgent is going to do is send them an email, and it's going to give them a banner notification at the bottom right. And it's going to do it every 2 minutes for 20 minutes until they read the message. So if they had stepped away from their desk for a minute, but we're saying we need to talk to them right away, urgent would be an option to do so that they're going to get it right away. When they get back to their desk, they're going to see it. So if they come back within that 20-minute time frame, every 2 minutes, that banner notification is going to pop up so they don't miss this message. So I'm going to click urgent. I'm clicking urgent. It shows up in red. It's got urgent in caps and everything. Now, when we talk about notifications in this program called Teams, I am unavailable right now. Because I'm in this meeting with you, I'm unavailable, and other people know that. So if they tried to chat with me right now, they wouldn't. Some things can be blocked, that they can't do certain things depending on what your status is. Now I'll get to those statuses in just a second, but if you look at my profile circle, it's got a red dot on it, which is telling anybody that sees my profile circle that I'm busy. So busy tells them they should not try and communicate with me right now because I'm busy. Even if I changed my status to saying do not disturb, I can get an urgent notification. So urgent is something that bypasses other things. Otherwise, if I have do not disturb turned on, I will not receive a regular chat or important status. I won't get those until I change my status back to being available, just so you're aware. I'm going to go ahead and send this chat message to my student 1 user. So I can see it was sent as urgent. It's got this bell over here. That user is going to get a pop-up every 2 minutes letting them know that I sent that urgent message to them. Okay, so that's a feature that a lot of people aren't aware of, how wonderful that can actually work for you. So I just wanted to mention that. And then also in your handout on page 9, it talks about voicemail. Voicemail is something that a lot of people I have not heard really are taking advantage of. So let's say that you have someone that you want to communicate with and you want to call them. You want to call them through Microsoft Teams. Well, you're probably wondering, why would you just pick up your cell phone and call the person? Why would I call somebody through Teams instead? Well, the benefit of calling someone through Teams is you can have it be, of course, a video call. It can be an audio call. You could share files during that call, and you could share your screen. So you get the benefit of so many different things by doing a call with someone. So let me demonstrate for a second. I'm going to call student 1, and I don't even have to go to a special place to do it. I can do it right from here, because if I hesitate on the profile circle for the user, I get a pop-up window. And from this pop-up, I could chat. I could actually look at their network. I could, or not their network, but an org chart, their company. I could look at a video or start a video call with them, or I could just do an audio call. And an audio call can turn into a video call, or a video could just be audio, whatever you want. I'm going to click on the phone receiver to do an audio call to student 1. So my student 1 is getting a notification at the bottom right of their screen saying Jolynn is calling you, and they can either accept or they can decline. So if I were using Teams as my background of my video training with you today, this wouldn't work quite as easily. So you're going to see that I could turn it into a video and get my menu choices up at the top. If that person answered, I would be able to share my screen with them, talk directly, turn our video cameras on, whatever we might need. But if she doesn't answer, the other person doesn't answer, you can leave them a voicemail message. So right now it's forwarding to voicemail, and it's actually going to give me a generic voicemail message saying, student 1 is unavailable, please leave a message after the tone, etc. I'm going to click leave instead. But if you leave a voicemail message for someone that doesn't answer, they will get an email notification, and they're going to, of course, get notified directly here in Teams that they missed a call and have this voicemail message. It's going to be on the left-hand side of the calls category. And then from the calls category, you can actually see the history of the calls, and you have access to any voicemail messages that were left. You would have access to voicemail messages as well at the top right. So this is actually a pretty cool program. It has so much more to it than I really think people use. It has so much more. And let's take that a little bit further. At the bottom of page 9 is talking about the notifications that I personally started talking about the very first second we got into this session today. So notifications happen all the time throughout Teams. If you look at pages 10 and 11, it talks about your presence, your status. As I mentioned, Jolynn is busy. It's got a red dot. You can always change your status. So if you have a meeting going on, but you want to look like you're available, you could do that by either going to your Teams icon, hesitating on the icon from your taskbar, then clicking on the green dot for available. Or you could go to your profile circle at the top right. If you click on your profile circle at the top right, you would be able to manage your status from here. Right now, mine says busy. If I click on that drop down, I could choose the status that I want. So if I want to appear away, or maybe I'll be right back, I'm going to step out and get some coffee, whatever the case might be. Maybe I want to say I'll be right back. So just so you know, you can always change your status. Otherwise, by default, it's feeding from your Outlook calendar. So mine is saying busy because I had this on this session on my calendar. So it's feeding from that, but you can override it if you need to. You can override it. But I want to jump back to talking more about Teams, because a big part of using this program is managing the teams that you create or that you are an owner of. So I'm going to go back to the left and click on Teams again. And then I'm going to be using this marketing department team as my example of managing the team. You can manage your tabs. You can manage your channels. You can manage the team itself. And for our last topic here, that's what we're going to focus on, is the management of these items that you are an owner of. Now, one of the things about managing a team is, being a guest, you have the least amount of rights to changing or modifying things. Members can do too much modifications, I think, but I'm going to show you how you can manage all of that. But we're going to start talking about the channels. So inside your channels, like we have a company template channel, we have these different tabs up at the top. We can manage the channel and we can manage the tabs, except by default, the post tab and the files tab, those cannot be deleted and you cannot rename them. You cannot rename the defaults. You can manage the wiki. If you go to the wiki icon for the tab itself, right click on it. The two things that you can do is give it a different name, or you can physically remove it, but you will get a wiki tab by default. If you're not familiar with what exactly a wiki is, go ahead and click on it. You'll see that it's a notes program. It's a notes app where you could share notes with other people. So if you're a sticky note or a scratch piece of paper type person, if you need to share the information on those sticky notes or whatever, instead type it in a wiki, because all members will have access to it. Okay, but just so you know, you can rename it or you could remove it. When it comes to the other apps that you add, like that task list that we added, that was coming from Planner, right click on that tab. So we manage tabs by right clicking on them. If you right click on it, you can rename it, you can remove it, or you can click on settings. If you click settings, what you're going to be able to do is switch to a different planner that you might have made or create a new one. So if you had an existing plan that you wanted to connect to, you could do that, or you could create another brand new one to replace this one. I'm not going to do either. I'm just going to close that, just so you know. But we manage the tabs by right clicking on them, just so you know. Well, it's the same with managing your channels or managing your team itself. You can just do the right click, or you can go to the ellipse on the right. So I'm going to just right click on the company templates channel. And I am an owner, just so you remember that. I created the team, so by default, I am an owner. But just so you see a couple of different bells and whistles here, there's channel notifications. You could actually turn off notifications if you didn't want them. So if you don't want to be notified of changes in the channel, you could turn that off. And that's an individual preference. For some people, they like to manage those. So just so you know, some things can be managed. You could also pin a channel. So let's say that you have a team that you're a member of, and you're actively needing to go to this company templates channel regularly. Instead of having to sift through all your teams and go through all these different channels, because you could have 10 channels, you could pin it so that it goes to the top of the list. So I'm going to click pin. It's going to put that channel in the pin category at the top of the list of my teams. So I have quick, easy access to that channel without having to go through everything else. When I'm done, if I'm no longer working on it regularly, I can go back and right click on it again and then unpin it. So if you're done, you don't need it at the top anymore, just unpin. I'm going to right click again on my company templates. From that menu, I could also hide the channel, because sometimes you may be an employee of the marketing department, but if you're not actively using the company templates, that's not your thing, that's not what you do, you could actually hide it. So I'm not going to do that today for time's sake, but just so you know, you could hide it. You could always have access to it again by going to it, but it doesn't have to take up space on your screen. It actually gives you a hidden category where every hidden channel is going to go to that hidden category for that team, just so you know. A couple of other things that I want to briefly mention. You have a manage channel option here. I'm going to click manage channel. From the manage channel, notifications, I should say the moderation can be turned on and off. Beyond the scope of our class today, But you could have different moderation set for different channels within your teams. That's more of an admin setting, but down at the bottom, you can see where you could start a new post. Can everybody do that? Or can everybody except guests start a new post? So you can manage those permission levels. You also have an analytics tab if you need to go to that to see how many users do you have, how many apps are connected to this channel, those types of things. I'm not going to worry about all of those settings today, but just so you're aware that you have that. I'm going to go back and right click again on this channel. I'm going to just mention, I'm not going to go into these features today, but you can technically get an email address. You can copy it, give it to other people. And if they're not a member or a guest of this channel, they could still send an email to the channel members. It goes through the post of that channel. So if I gave an email address to the CFO of the company, they're not a member of the marketing department, but I give them the email, they could send an email and it would go directly to the post tab of this channel. So it's a way that you can communicate with people outside of the channel. We also have a get link to channel that you could share with other people and then they can become a member. You can edit the channel by changing the channel's name. So if you need to change the channel to a different name or change the description, that is where you would go to do that. And then back to the right click again. You also have connectors. Connectors is referring to some of your third-party apps that you can add as a tab. So it has to do with your third-party apps that you can add to a tab. We're not going to worry about those today, but just so you're aware. But the last thing that I'm going to do with the channel is I'm going to delete it. I'm going to click delete this channel. When you delete a channel, it's going to ask you, are you sure you want to do this? Because as you can see, it says all conversations will be deleted. Your files will still be accessible in the actual SharePoint site. So just so you know, your files aren't being deleted, but conversations are. I'm going to click delete. I'm going to click delete. So that channel is gone for everybody. Now, if you think about that, if you're going to delete something, be careful. You might want to notify the members to let them know you're going to delete that channel before you do it. Because if they had anything in there, they could get it out before it gets deleted if they needed it. But just so you know, you can recover a deleted channel or a deleted team up to 30 days after it's been deleted if you are an admin. So sometimes you have to go to IT to have them help you do that, but just so you know, you can. Now, I'm going to go into managing the team itself. So I'm going to right click on my marketing department team, and you're going to see several different options here in this pop-up menu as well. I can hide the team, which means it's just going to go into a hidden folder of hidden teams. I can always go to that folder and get access to it, but it won't take up space on my screen. I'm going to click Manage Team. I'm going to left click on Manage Team. This will be a popular area, and for me, I highly recommend you plan this. This is an area that you plan before you build the team. I'll get to where I'm going to recommend you plan before you build. But here I could add and remove members or change a member to an owner. So you can see that I've got my list. Here's my members and my guests. I could add additionals from here as well. If I click Pending Request tab at the top, that is referring to if somebody sends me a request to join this team, it will come here to this tab. I'm going to click Channels. If you delete a channel, want to create a new channel, this is where you can go to do so for this team. So you can see at the top right, I could add channels from here, or I could go to this category for deleted, and I'm going to see the company templates channel that was deleted. At the right-hand side, I can click Restore to bring that channel back. And that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to click Restore. When you click Restore, it's going to say, are you sure you want to? This is going to bring back your conversations, your content. I'm going to click Restore. So that channel automatically comes back. Okay. So it disappears by default for everybody, and then it's going to just reappear for everybody. And then I'm going to continue with managing this team. I'm going to click on Settings, and this is what you want to plan for. So when you go to Settings, you can change to a different picture than the generic square with the initials. So that's how I got my cloud for my virtual training company team, is I clicked on team picture and I brought in a change picture. Okay, but enough of that. Let's talk about member permissions, because this is huge. If you look at member permissions, it is amazing what a member has rights to do by default. You need to plan for this. You need to think about this. Do you want members to be able to create and update channels? Do you want them to be able to create private channels that you might not have access to? Do you want them to be able to delete or restore a channel? So look through this list. These are things that are very important, that before you invite people to come to your team to be a member or a guest, think about these settings. You might want to change these settings before they become a member. So have this be part of your plan. I'm not going to go through all of those today, but you want to uncheck the ones you don't want to apply. I'm going to click guest permissions. Depending on the member permissions, the guests have other permissions as well. If a member cannot create or update a channel or delete channels, a guest can't either. If a member can't do it, a guest can't. It's automatically out. Just so you know, you can change that. And then here's the at mentions. Do you want people to be able to create mentions? Do you want them to use them? We also have a team code. People can join by generating a code. They could put in that code, and then they'll be a member of the team, just so you're aware. And then also something that you might want to plan for is the fun stuff. What do you really want people to be able to use when it comes to their chats and different things? Do you want them to be using in the post tab and stuff, different emojis? So you got to be careful and not give them too much, depending on what type of channel it is. So just so you know, you can manage it here. We can manage it on the admin side in the background of your program as well. So if every time people make a new team, you can override it as an admin on what features they have allowed. What apps can they add as tabs and different things like that. And then the last thing on the bottom here I want to talk about is tags. This is where you could create a brand new tag and give it a name. Now, we're not going to worry so much about that today, but just so you're aware. So managing your channels, managing your tabs inside your channels, and managing your team itself can be done by a right click. That's going to be the most popular that you'll probably use for managing those items here in a team. And all of this was covered going from page 11, 12, 13, over to page 14, 15, 16, all of this information related to working with your teams, etc. And on page 17, it talks about deleting a team or leaving a team. Let's say that I added Alan as a member to my marketing department team. As a member, Alan could say, I don't want to be a member. He could technically leave a team. So if somebody else creates a team and you don't want to be a member of it, right click on it and you can leave that team. Okay. So click leave the team and you'll be no longer a part of that team. But as an owner, don't leave a team, especially if there's not another owner, because then only admins will have rights to the background of managing that team or deleting it. So never leave a team if you're the only owner. Usually you're going to have more than one owner, because if you're on vacation or something, someone else could manage it if it needs to be modified or anything. Okay. But there is this delete the team. So if you create a team and you decide you no longer want that team, you can delete a team and restore it again up to 30 days. If you have admin rights, you can go back and have it restored. But when you delete a team, everything will be gone that's a part of that team. Now, because I created this just for this session, I'm going to delete this marketing department team. I'm going to left click on delete. It's going to say, are you sure you want to delete this? You have to actually confirm it by saying, I understand that everything will be deleted. So your channels, your conversations, your files. So once again, if you're going to delete a channel or you're going to delete a team, you may want to notify the members prior to deleting them. It's a courtesy to let them know that this is going to be deleted. You only have until this day to, get anything out of there that you might need access to. Okay. It's a courtesy, so you should do that. I'm going to go ahead and just click delete team. My team disappears for anybody that's a member. It just automatically vanishes for everybody. Okay. Which sometimes people are like, oh my gosh, what happened to that team? So make sure that you notify everybody ahead of time so that they're not scared, oh my gosh, I had something in there that I needed. Okay. Well, those are the topics. I know we went kind of quick. I had a lot of things that I wanted to make sure we covered today. Are there any questions that anyone has?
Jolynn, I've got a few here that we could kind of
Okay.
start off with. And if people have additional questions, just enter them into the Q&A box, and we'll get to them as we can. So one of the things I just wanted to clarify on the last topic that you touched on. So if you delete a team, that's everything's gone. So nothing's still living in SharePoint, correct? All of the files are gone, and that's different than when you delete a channel.
Correct.
Okay.
And you get 30 days though to restore it.
To restore the team?
Correct. So if 2 weeks after you delete it, you decide, oh no, I really need to get this information back out of it, you can always restore the team, get out of there what you need, and then go back and delete it again.
Yep.
Okay? I've had to do that recently.
Yep. I think, Kayla, looks like we have a couple questions here that are popping in.
Yeah, there was a couple that came through the Q&A dialog box. So we have one that says, can a guest make edits to documents in a channel?
Yes, they can. Good question. So anyone that is a member or a guest can go to that file and make changes to it. Now, if you keep in mind though, Microsoft does have security options. So if I have an Excel spreadsheet, Excel workbook that's saved to the Files tab, I could open it in desktop version, apply security to it, whether it's workbook security or worksheet security, so that only certain things can be done to that file. Because if other people are going in it, they can do whatever. Okay, good question.
Great. And then the other one is, if you have an Excel file open in a channel and two people are making changes to it simultaneously, what do you need to do to save both of their changes to that file? So who saves it, how?
I love this question. It's a great question.
I know it's something that comes up in our internal meetings a lot, Al, so
all the
I like
time.
it too.
This is huge. So I'm going to go ahead and open up this project plan. Just happens to be something that I'm on, and I'll open up this Excel spreadsheet. When you are using your online version of Excel, which is what I'm using when I'm in Teams, it is automatically saving. So if you have someone that's on the project plan sheet tab, somebody that's on your risk registry tab, whatever changes they are making is automatically being saved. If someone goes to the same cell and makes a change, it's really whoever the last person is that what is saved. So if I make a change and then I leave, I close the file, but two other people are still actively in it, they're going to continue to make their changes, and they could go to something that I just changed. But just so you keep in mind, one of the benefits to Microsoft, I love Microsoft, by the way, but one of their huge benefits is when we are doing these files that are saved to the cloud, like in SharePoint here, we can actually go back and see the history. So if I wanted to go back to the file so that I want to go back to yesterday's file or last week's file, I can go into the version history of that file and I can restore it back if I need to. Okay, a whole nother topic for another day, but that definitely would be an option for you to do.
So one of the things I'll mention, and this is just really from experience, is when you have multiple people in a document at the same time, you actually see them in the document. You can tell which tab they're on. Their little circle shows up, and you can actually see which cell they're editing. A lot of the changes, I think, are more or less updated real time. So you can just sort of see what's happening as it's happening, and it's helpful, I think, to know that there are other people in there at the same time.
Absolutely. So you're going to actually see at the top right of the window itself, whether you're in Word, PowerPoint, or Excel, whatever, you're going to see an icon for the people that are actively in. And I'm glad Alan brought up the fact that whatever cell they're clicked on, you actually see their initials, and it's a different color. So if you have multiple people, each one is a different color. So one will be blue, one will be green, whatever the colors are. Excellent.
So here's a question. I find this is a sort of a common point of confusion. With all of the files, you have, the three dots, and if you want to open the file, you've got the option to open it in Teams, open it with the app, or open in the browser. Could you talk a little bit about what the differences are and why you might choose one versus the other?
Well, for me personally, I'll speak just from my experiences. I'm always in Microsoft Teams. And just so you know, if I have a file that is saved in Teams, I'm most likely here anyway. I don't have to go to the internet to log into my Microsoft account to get to my SharePoint document libraries. I'm here. I'm going to do it right from here. It's quicker, it's easier, it's more efficient. But do you know that here in Microsoft Teams, you can access your other cloud files? I don't have to go to my, log in online or anything like that. If I have something on my OneDrive, I don't even have to go to my File Explorer. If I'm already here in Teams doing something, I just go to this left-hand side, click on the files icon, and I have access to my cloud-related files. I get this list. Right now I'm in recent, so I can see all the recent files that I've worked on, and my location lets me know where it's physically saved at. So is it saved on my OneDrive, or where exactly is it saved at? So this is pretty cool. Working with files is amazing here in Teams. I don't have to leave this program to do other things, to go open another program, log in someplace else. These tabs that we have in the channels, these commands that we have on the left-hand side, give you access to everything you need. Doesn't have our email yet.
So one of the topics you touched on, Jolynn, which I think is really important, is the idea of having apps that integrate with Teams. And I know that's kind of mysterious to a lot of people. You showed us one app all around to-do lists and that sort of task planning, but there are so many of them. I mean, can you give us a sense of like, what are some examples of apps that are interesting and might pique people's curiosity?
Great question. So I jumped back into a channel, and I'm going to go to my tabs up at the top. I don't have to do it this way, by the way. I don't have to be in a channel to have access to it, but I'm going to go back to that plus sign for my tabs. You have to, so in the background, admin, IT admin, people manage Teams for your organization, and they can give access to tabs, or I should say apps. They can remove them. So if they don't want you to have access to something, they can control that in the background. But if you have a license to use something outside of Microsoft apps, this is going to show you all of the approved apps that work through Teams. So as you scroll through this list, look at all of these different apps. I have used Asana through my Teams. You just have to have a username and a password to get into the program because you have to have a license for it to use it. So if you look at this alphabetized list, it's crazy, and they keep adding more and more apps to this list. As more and more apps get developed, Microsoft checks them out. If there's something that would be relatively related to this, they add this option for people to be able to use them. Okay, so it's crazy how many different choices you're going to find in this list.
Do you find that there are categories of products that are popular? I know, for example, one of the things we looked at internally was an app that did polls, so we could ask people a question and get their feedback. And there was an app that did that. Yes. I know there's a whiteboard app. There's a lot of these apps I look at, and I'm not sure that I know what all of them do, or even most of them do. So I mean, are there sort of big buckets that attract people?
Oh, absolutely. And I'll show you the category side of this in just a second, but I could search for an app too, so I don't have to sit and scroll through the list. So if I knew I was looking for Poly, I could just search for it too. So I'm going to click on Poly just so you can see what's going to end up happening if somebody does this. They're actually going to go into this window. They're not directly adding it. So don't be afraid to click on something just to see what it is, because it's not physically adding it yet until you click add. But you're going to see where you're going to have access to more information. So when Alan was just saying, I don't even know what all these are. We don't. I mean, because there's some that it's crazy how many are there. How can you know them all? So if you don't know something, go ahead and click on it so that you can get more information on it. And you're going to see a video on most of these that you can actually watch that you can see how things work through Teams. And then you can have more from Poly as you're scrolling down, you can get more details. Isn't that pretty cool? But let me close this window. On the left-hand side, so I don't have to be in a channel, by the way. If I go to this left-hand side of this navigation pane, notice at the bottom left, you have apps. If you click on the apps icon from the left-hand side, you're going to also see the apps on the right-hand side. And here's where you're going to find your categories. So if I'm looking for something that is specific to project management or whatever the case might be, I can go to that category and it's going to show me the related apps. So I like being able to do this. It's great to have access to this. So I've got my Agile Poly, everything. Microsoft Project, I have Monday.com, which is becoming more popular. All kinds of different things, MailChimp. But the key to this is, these aren't all free. You usually, for some of these, you have to have a license for it. So keep that in mind. Okay.
Great. That's very helpful. Thanks, Jolynn.
You're welcome.
So I have one last question here, and I know this is another one of those sort of points of confusion, I think, for people, and it's around meetings that are scheduled generally. And the question is, where should those take place? You know, the meetings can be in a channel. We've got a calendar. We can put meetings on the calendar. I've seen channels that are like dedicated to meetings, a channel called meetings. Is there a best practice around this?
Every organization I'm seeing does things a little bit differently, but let's clarify one thing quick first. I can go to Outlook and create a Teams meeting. I don't have to be in Microsoft Teams to create a Teams meeting. I can do that directly through Outlook Calendar. But the benefit of doing a meeting, scheduling a meeting that's going to be a Teams meeting, is in Teams, if you go to your calendar and schedule a meeting here. So I'm just going to go to the top right, click new meeting, just to kind of walk you through it. You can add it to a channel. So if you have a team that's already created and a channel that's already created, you can connect that meeting directly back to that channel. Why would you ever want to do that? Well, if I'm going to be doing a meeting that's going to be HR related, I could connect it to the benefits channel of my HR team. And what that does is when you actually conduct the meeting, if you do meeting notes, you do your chats, you record the meeting, it's all back to the channel. It's not going to be stored generically someplace else in the chat area. It's actually going to be directly stored within that channel. So you go to the channel to have access to anything related to that channel. And to me, that's huge. I think if you're going to have something that's already related to a team, to a channel, you should be connecting it to that channel directly. Does that help?
Yep, got it. That makes it a lot of sense. And that's it. So I don't have any more questions for you. I think we've got maybe one last slide and then we'll wrap it up.
Excellent.
And just to remind people, we will be sending out the recording of this. You certainly feel free to share that with whomever you would like. I noticed that some of you are taking us up on our offer to extend these invitations to colleagues, friends, peers who you think might benefit. Continue to do that. You know, we're really focused on serving you, our clients, but if you want to share the wealth a little bit, please go ahead and do that. And as always, you know, we're happy to have a bigger conversation about this with any of you at any point in time. If you're a client, you know, there's really no limit to how much we'll talk to you. If you're not a client, you know, we'd love to talk to you too. You know, just give us a call. We'll chat about Teams or whatever's on your mind. And the other thing to mention, and you know, this training endeavor is a little bit of a new thing for us. As I mentioned, this is our 4th session, but we've been getting some interest in private training, and that is something that we can do if it's interesting to you. We can bring in resources like Jolynn to do that. So if there's some specific areas that you want to focus on, we're absolutely able to do that. Just reach out to your account manager, and if you don't know who that is, just, you know, give us a call or send an email, and we will connect you with the right person. And I think that is all we have. So thank you, Jolynn. That was great. I definitely learned something today for sure. So appreciate all you did for us today, and hope everybody enjoyed it. And remember, is it October 26th, Kaylee, is the Outlook Beyond the Basics session, which is something I'm looking forward to also, because you know, you live and breathe an Outlook all day long, and it does so much that I am positive that most of us, or you know, a lot of us don't really know about, and we're just kind of scratching the surface. So I'm really looking forward to that one. Hopefully we'll see you all then. All right, make it a great day.
Thanks,
See you
everyone.
guys.
Thank you.